Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to talk about why the Democrats have been acting so stupid. Yes, I use the word stupid for the past 2 weeks. You couldn't miss it if you tried. The constant dogging of President Biden about his age as if they just figured that out. And that they just figured out how old he is. Not only is it ageist, it's plain dumb. My grandmother used to say, you don't talk the power out of things. And what that means is if your goal is to win, you speak life over that, you speak positivity, you speak focus, you speak strategy, and you implement. If you say you can't win, then guess what? You can't. All right. So while you're bad mouthing your presidential candidate, or whatever it is that you're doing, your opponent is laughing in glee because you've done all the work for them, essentially. The Democrats literally imploded on themselves these past couple of weeks, but not all of them were on board for the foolishness. And we're going to discuss that in particular. My guests and I are going to discuss the negative and foolish rhetoric of some of the Democrats. First up, I have Fennell Norton. Fennell made her mark on the political scene in 2021 when she entered the race for the Virginia House of Delegates. Although she didn't win that race, Fennell quickly became a key player in the political arena. She has been welcomed as a contributor to the Badass Strategies by Network Nova and is a host of a weekly video podcast called Friday Power Lunch. Her commitment to democratic values extends to working with the rural ground game, postcards for Virginia, grassroots organizations. She is a contributing host of the YouTube show You Can't Beat Blue. Since 2022, Fennell has moderated the Salon series for the National Women's Political Caucus. Fennell served 26 years as a senior executive at Bank of America. Her blend of corporate expertise and her passion for political activism makes her a formidable advocate for progress and change. Welcome to the show, Fennell.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I hope that the echo isn't too bad.
Well, what we might have to do is that you might have to do the mute on and mute off. When you're speaking, you'll unmute, and then while I'm talking, you just mute. And that way we can have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. My next guest is Stacy Jackson. All right. And she is from my hometown of Detroit. Oops. Okay. Now wait a second. Stacy, now your picture isn't there. What happened? Stacy? Oh, you know what? I think she's frozen or something. I think. I can't believe this. This is crazy. This listen, folks, this is a live show. This is live for real, for real. Okay, let me see. Hold on, guys. Let me say hi to my guests. Okay. Showy Howie. Hey. Loretta, my sword. Good evening. Margaret Velasquez. Good evening. Showy. Echo chamber coming from some no, we know. Hey, Stacy. Okay, want to stay? Stacy froze for a minute there. We were doing so good, and she froze, and we're waiting for her to come back on stage. So let's see here. Judy, the devil is working overtime today. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And we know that this show is important. And so we're going to you know what? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna keep going and let me talk with Fennell first for a minute until we get Stacy back on. Okay, and we'll introduce her. All right. All right. Let's see. Okay, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Amen. You guys pray on that because get Stacy's situation for she's back on. Okay, so for now, let me see. I have all of these notes, mind you. So let me tell everyone that, this is very important, guys. Let me tell everyone that we will discuss the shooting that occurred at the Trump rally after we deal with the faulty messaging among Democrats as we advertised, okay? So for now, what do you make of the open and loud hand wringing of some of these Democratic operatives?
So, oh, I hear the echo. So it's okay, perfect. So what I think is, if you sort of think about who is actually doing all the talking, it would be hard to not just sort of look at who they are. And most of them appear to be wealthy, rich, white men. And I find that to be really interesting because if you think about the folks who are standing fast, frankly, it is the grassroots, and that is all people in the grassroots, the majority of them. It is the Black Caucus, and it, of course, is uh, just Black people in general. And I think that it's really telling because, you always hear that saying when people say, this country, this is not who we are,
Mm-hmm.
but, but it's exactly who we are. It is we are demonstrating that a whole lot hasn't changed. And so I think that what has to happen is the grassroots and all of us have to stand strong because we know that at the end of the day, and I say this because I love Gavin Newsom, I do,
Mm-hmm.
but I would tell you if Gavin Newsom was the VP, this is not a conversation that we'd be having at all. This is a conversation that we're having because it is a Black woman. We got two things: she's Black and she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why this conversation is occurring. And so, if you just sort of think about it, maybe even a year ago when they were talking about whether or not Biden was fit, you never heard them say, but we have a vice president. They would give you Tim Ryan or they'd give you Gretchen Whitmer. They'd give you all of these people, but they never give you the president who's sitting there. And we have a constitution that tells us if something happens to the president, then the next person steps up.
Mm-hmm.
So if we believe that Biden is so incapable and that he's so diminished, which he did all of these things while he was diminished 2 years ago, because that's what they say. Oh, he's been declining for years. Well, he
Mm-hmm.
surely got a lot of stuff done for someone
Mm-hmm.
who was declining.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if that was in fact the case, if we felt he couldn't carry it all the way through, then he's got a VP. So I believe that people who know, people who are practical, and we are a pragmatic people, understand what is happening here. And we understand that should they make changes at this late of the game, that for us, who this would affect so much differently than the other part of America, that we know that this would be a blow to us and we know what we need to do. And that is to keep things as they are. And if something happens by November 6th, we can have us a new president. That's the way it's supposed to work.
So go ahead and mute. Okay. So I at this point I was, of course we would have Stacy making her discussion, but so let's just go ahead and talk about race, shall we? Um as and I was going to repeat what you've already said, for now. As I saw the list of President Biden's naysayers, they all had that one thing in common. They were all white and men, with the exception of one white female. It, so the real issue is not Biden's age, but that Kamala, his vice president, is black. Again, that is nothing new. I think what it was that they saw him stumble. on the debate stage, and they freaked out. Oh my God, he can't do it. He can't do it. He can't do it. And uh, um, D.L. Hughley, the comedian who is very political, he said it's a non-starter. Why are you all saying when she's the vice president? So what if you think he can't make it? Is she not competent? Is she not capable? Has she not been doing this for the past almost 4 years? So I mean, come on, it's a non-starter all the way around. Totally non-starter. Totally. So, you know what? I am going to, oh, our dear Stacy still hasn't come back yet. I am going to play one of the videos that I have that I want you all to see of what it's about, what the focus should be. What should our focus be right now in these tumultuous times? Let me say hi to a few more people. Mags and Tracy are from Michigan too. Hey, Mags and Tracy. Thank you, Shelby, for they don't want a black woman as president. Exactly, Tracy. Marie Torres, hey y'all. Hey, Marie. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, I think I see Stacy.
Goodness.
Here she is. Yay, Stacy. Oh, poor thing.
Ladies,
Are you in your car now?
I am in my car.
Wow. Wow.
But when women come together, things happen. So I am going to make it happen.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, anyhow. Okay, so guys, let me introduce Stacy Jackson, who is back with us as we were just introducing her. Her internet froze up. She got into her car because she knows how to make it happen. Anyway, anyhow, we women are flexible. We know how to do things. So, Stacy Jackson.
Absolutely.
That's right. Stacy Jackson is from my hometown of Detroit. Stacy is an expert communicator and skilled collaborator in outreach education and community engagement with a professional career spanning 30 years in post-secondary education. Stacy is a passionate speaker, community leader, and activist who believes in engaging, preserving, and protecting our communities is not only a civic responsibility, but a moral obligation for intergenerational legacy. Stacy is the founder of the African American League of Women Voters. Stacy holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in radio, television, and film, and her master's in education and instructional technology from Wayne State University. Welcome to the show, Flexible Stacy.
Thank you. Glad to be here with such distinguished host and also uh, invitee as well and guests. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, I'm so happy to have both of you. I really am. Um, so Stacy, let me go back to you. Let me see. Okay. What do you think? I had the same question. What do you make of the open and loud hand wringing of Democratic operatives?
Well, I think that as Democrats, there is a way to implement all conversations.
Hmm.
I think that um, we have to be in control of how we set our own narrative.
Hmm.
I think that it is an oddity for us to have such a colorized narrative of the current president on age and cognitive abilities, when in short, to simply put it, uh, what this boils down to is a narrative that they're painting as Biden. You know, one may be slow in his thinking, but then you have his opponent who's not right in his thinking. And so I think that we could certainly, as Democrats, do a better way of of painting and sharing our own narrative. I
Mhm.
don't think that it should be by age. Neither candidates are youngsters, so to speak. But certainly we can do much better about how we paint the narrative.
Absolutely, absolutely. While you were gone, we were Fanel and I touched on the race factor about it really isn't so
Hmm.
much Biden's age as it is his race. And we were also, I was bringing up the fact that D.L. Hughley, the famous comedian, really went all in on TMZ and those guys and said, "You guys are talking bull crap." And of course, he didn't say that those words; he was cussing, and he said, "You all are talking all this stuff as if Kamala's not right there, a lawyer, all of the accomplishments she has, but what they want to do, these white liberals, is to skip over her and say, "Oh no, what Kamala? Who, oh, we don't really see her. What, who?"
Absolutely.
That kind of thing. And so
Absolutely.
it's just the same old ugly narrative of
It's
race.
one of those, yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that, it, we have a lot of creeds in our nation. And while we are um, the best, we're a great country, but we're great because we continue to strive to live up to those creeds we aspire to be, not
Hmm.
that that's how we were founded to be. And
Hmm.
so what we see in this moment is not just a judgment of Biden being slow at his mind against the opponent that's not right in mind, um, but racism and discrimination and sexism is also rearing its head as well. And
Hmm.
so historically, we know that VPs in this type of situation has always been the next to carry the torch or step up in that to carry that mantle. So we're aware of that. Um, it's also, you know, something to consider that in my lifetime, this is not the first president that has been of age whose mind has been questioned as being feeble or not quite together. I
Hmm.
recall Ronald Reagan in his term
Hmm.
and
Uh-oh.
so there are parameters in place, and so we have, they have political advisors, they have support teams, they have senates, they have um, lots of other things and support systems that help them through that. LBJ, you know, suffered issues in health, failing health during his presidency as well. And many say that it was really Eleanor that was helping to run things when he was in office. The fact that we do have an African American female VP in office and that they are speaking of, who's next when we already have a batter that is up if they're deciding to put another one in the game.
Hmm.
My concern is that I would rather Democrats spend less time asking Biden to step down when they really should be saying who we have here to step up. And they haven't said that at all.
Right. They have not. They have not.
So, Pam,
Yes,
I
Chanel.
would love to jump in here.
Yes.
So, so there are a couple of things that I think are really important. So, the first one is they always say, "Can Joe Biden make it 4 years?" And and my point is he doesn't have to make it 4 years. He just has to make it through November 6th. And whatever happens after that happens after that. And he has done enough and demonstrated enough that he can do that. Just in my view, just get through the election. And to the point that Stacey has made, if we were just focused on making sure that we lift up this president and the vice president and the team collectively that is behind him, which is one of the most diverse, one of the most skilled, competent teams, a cabinet that any president has ever had. And that is really important. So we have to keep lifting that up. And the other thing that I just wanted to cover, someone talked about polls, and I want to remind everyone that the polls are really quite fickle. If you remember in 2022, it was supposed to be this huge red wave based on the polls, and that did not happen. And I think another point that we can also sort of suggest with the polls is Angela Osselbrook from Baltimore, from Maryland. And
Mm-hmm.
they had her losing by 12 points. And I think her primary challenger spent something like $60 million of his own money. And she won by a significant number. So polls are polls, but you really have to take them with a grain of salt. And people should know that. And so I think we have to do that. And at the end of the day, I think someone said, it is the army that wins the war. And so yes, we have to be focused about those folks who are at the top, but at the end of the day, it will be the folks in the grassroots, the folks who are talking to friends and family and neighbors. And if you think about it, the folks on the ground with all this polling that's happening, and Democrats are polling, Joe Biden is polling behind, and it is us who are, we're not being called. They're not calling us on the telephone. I haven't gotten any phone calls. I don't know anybody in my family who's gotten a phone call. But I think at the end of the day, we still have to talk to our own people. I do these power circles because I think one of the questions you ask is what do we do? And I do these power circles where we have friends of family come over and we have a chance to talk to people. And in our own circles, we have these folks who are double haters. I met my first double hater who was a person who didn't like Trump and she didn't like Biden. And this is a person of color. And and she just went on, and finally she said, after I said, well, you just said this was important, and you said this was important, and Trump and his campaign don't offer that, but the Democratic Party does. And she goes, well, I'm just going to put it in God's hands. And so that's sort of the jump off point for this particular double hater. But we were able to talk about the fact that, he gave you 5 good senses for you to be able to make decisions. So I bring this up to say that we've got our own people that we have to bring along. And it's going to require every bit of that to win the election, because people are not engaged at this point, and we just got to work really hard to get them there.
Right. We absolutely have to get them there. We absolutely. I want to ask all of you guys to. Oh, hold on. I want to ask all of you, if wherever you're listening from, please hit the thumbs up button, particularly if you are on YouTube. Particularly if you are on YouTube, hit thumbs up and please like the video. Subscribe as well. It's a free way to support my channel. Thank you so much. Have to put that plug in there. All right. So where am I? I was going to show you a video of the of what the focus must be at this time. Marie Torres, did you have something you wanted to say? Because I don't see your face, but I see you backstage, and I don't. Did you want to say something? Say yes in the chat or whatever if you do. But I'm going to share a video uh, that I found on what we need to focus on. Okay.
I see it every day at the Texas Capitol. They are testing these ideas in states like Texas before they take them nationwide, banning books, banning abortion, forcing every teacher to display the 10 Commandments, replacing school counselors with untrained chaplains, defunding public schools to subsidize private Christian schools. We are sleepwalking toward theocracy, and we must act with the urgency that this moment demands.
Okay. All right. So I know that you all saw that, right? And that is the thing. We have to keep the main thing the main thing. How many of you had say it in the chat and among you ladies, how many of you had a teacher that when they taught, I guess I think I heard it more in like a math class or geometry or something like that, is that you focus on what the principles of what I'm teaching you so that you can follow it out, that you could work on the problem. But whenever you kind of just get scattered and you're all over the place, you can't, it's you're not focused, and you're not, you have to have that steely focus on what is your goal. And that's what's so frustrating about the Democrats, is that they're just so neurotic and crazy, and unfortunately racist, some of them. And they're not even in tune with it, because there's things that, oh, I love everybody, oh, I'm liberal, I'm this and that, and yet there are things that you do that are just not inherently good for everyone, you know. Oh, don't let me get on that
And
soap.
that's been part of the founding of our country at at all fronts. I was recently at an event yesterday, and an African American woman that was there with another organization, uh, a Democrat as well, and we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about the importance of voting for Democrats up and down the ballot. We need them up and down the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
But then she said in a side note that she felt like a battered wife with the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said it, I instantly knew what she was conveying. And basically, what that means is one of the reasons why I started the organization, African American League of Women Voters. She meant that she felt like an abused wife that keeps coming back, standing by her husband, being committed, and then being buked at the end where there is no change for her in that relationship. And when she said it, I understood her wording and her messaging with that. And so part of it is that one of the challenges is that there are so many people, particularly African Americans, that in this moment feel let down by our party. They feel let down by the party, and because of that, and then you also see the narrative that they're painting, which is a very broad stroke of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where I have so many people that come up to me who are voting, but are begrudgingly voting
Mm-hmm.
Democrat, and that's a concern for a lot of us who are voting Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And despite my organization actually being nonpartisan, um, I myself am a registered Democrat, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how I vote. Um, but there are that's a real concern,
Mm-hmm.
of feeling let down all the time. And so when there is nothing that comes out, um, when you have promises made and promises not kept,
Mm-hmm.
and your voice and vote is now needed more than ever to help transcend that across the finish line,
Mm-hmm.
it's tougher. And so that's something that this narrative isn't helping. Uh,
Yeah.
Pam, can I?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
so
Please, now.
thank you. I'd love to comment on that because this is what I think, and this is just the me that gets so irritated, and that is I didn't always participate in politics. When I was busy, I was working. I just didn't know a lot. I mean, and the only reason I got involved was because when I came back and saw what was happening in my community, and no one was willing to run, not a soul. I just thought we cannot let the man just run uncontested. It just can't be done. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I found is that I wasn't the only one not participating. Tons of people didn't participate. They didn't participate and they didn't engage and they didn't care. And what happens is then all of a sudden everybody is upset about the thing they didn't get or the stuff they didn't get, especially when it comes to down ballot. No one participates in the down ballot races. We beg and beg and beg, vote all the way down your ballot, and then no one does, and then we're complaining. And so I do think that we have to have a talk with the family that's in the family that says if you don't vote, if you're not participating, you don't get to complain. And I think it's the same way for you know we're never going to get all the things we want because the system doesn't work that way. It is a system that requires a House and a Senate, and it has to have a number of people to participate in order for the president to be able to do what they say they're going to do. And then the
Absolutely.
other piece of it is we say, well, what did they do? And then you say, oh, well, did you know that insulin's $35? Did you know that they capped asthma medicine? Did you know that we're now going to be able to negotiate prescription drugs? Did you know that HBCUs got tons of money so that they can continue on? Did you know that student loans got canceled? Did you? And then they go, oh, well, nobody told me that. Well, you can read too. And so I'm just saying that at the end of the day, for anybody who's complaining, and to you, Stacy, for the battered woman, you know, and we're asking for votes more important now than ever. You have one hand that you have a big pile of poo, which is the Republican Party and all the stuff that they do. And then on this hand, you got some ice cream. It's got some pistachios in it, some almonds, some coconut, a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want. And the thing is that you have to say, am I going to do the big pile of poo, or am I going to do this one? I'm not going to get everything I want. I'm going to spit some of that stuff out, but we buy time so we can fight another day. And I think that's the argument that we have to say to folks is let's buy some time to fight another day. And if we do that, maybe we do get that president that we're looking for.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I can see that point too. I think the other part that's how can I say that is overshadowing Joe Biden's successes, the receipts that he's made. And it is actually some of those local things. I know in Michigan, they've had, just in Detroit, they had a school board system, and also over homeowners were overtaxed to the tune of over $600 million. So these are people who were improperly foreclosed on, for property tax foreclosure, for increased property taxes that they did not own. And so you think about those ramifications that happens when a person foreclosed on their homes. Perhaps, it could have been, mental health came into play, drug abuse could have come into play, alcoholism could have come into play. The same thing in Southfield. They were recently, and these were the locals. I'm speaking of elected officials on the local levels in Michigan that were responsible. Oakland County just settled for predatory property tax foreclosure in the state of Michigan throughout Oakland County for the tune of nearly $40 million for
My
something similar, where the cities were taking, property tax foreclosed homes, using their first refusal rights for $1, getting the home, flipping them for full market value, and violating the takings clause. And so a lot of these things that has regular voters, regular folk that's voting disgruntled with the party isn't necessarily Biden. It's the stuff that's they're facing the day to day that has them upset and frustrated. And so that's why, and I wasn't always in politics either. I'm a creative person by trade, and in post secondary, and so I got involved with my husband, who's heavily involved in community, and then that just kind of spiraled into my getting involved. But much of the grassroots that I see, the complaints really isn't with Biden. It's with the local levels. It's down the ballot where they're frustrated. And those are the things that directly impact. So while Biden may be, he's been successful with prescription drugs and insulin being $35, that's great. But that's not as great as it would be if I didn't lose my home unlawfully. That's great, these types of things. And so one of the things we need to do is not only voting, because, and I love that analogy where you have poo and then ice cream with some sprinkles or whatnot that I don't necessarily like. I love that analogy because it's befitting, because you want to turn to the ice cream because it's not poop. But in this instance, what's layered on that are the cookies underneath. And I'm going to say those cookies are those local people down the ballot. We need to make sure we do our due diligence as grassroots people to make sure we don't just vote Democrat, but we vote in the right Democrats who not only get the receipts, but they also want to do the work. And that's the part on the local level down the ballot. That's the part that's hindering Biden. Even in Michigan, just to piggyback on that, we even have a Democrat who is encouraging folks to vote non-committed. Now, how does that? I mean, how does that help the situation? And of course, as African Americans, we understand genocide. we, we understand genocide, because our experience to that didn't happen abroad. It happened here. and,
Right.
and so and so we understand those things. I was at an event, and someone mentioned about, things afar, and the wars happening, and I said, yeah, I understand that scenario, because if you check our history here, those things with being mutilated and burned and hung happened here on this soil. And much of it happened with selfies. I call those pictures the original selfies, where you have hanging strange fruit, like the song, and a
Mhm,
mob of people posing with it. As it
mhm,
was sport. It wasn't even spoils of war like it's happening. It was sport. And so we have to do our due diligence, and as I said, not just to vote Democrat, if you're in that party, but make sure we vote in the right one.
mhm. Amen. Amen. Tracy, you sound like my mother. You sound like my
I'm
mother. I know
I'm
that
I'm
happened in
with
the
her a lot.
Michigan. I know that happened in the great state of Michigan. Marie Torres had asked this question. Where is it at? Oh, here it is. She said, "Do you all feel that Kamala has been purposely silenced?" Fennel?
Yeah. So here's what I think about that, and I'm gonna get to it. So it'll take me a second.
That's okay.
So 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 at the end of the day, I don't think that Joe Biden wanted to run at all. I think that he is running because he has to, and I'm going to tell you why I think that. So
Mhm,
I think that it was important to get a vice president that we all cared about, and there was a lot of push to make sure that there was a woman, a black woman. And even if they didn't say it, that's what everybody heard. And so what they heard was, I'm going to get a black woman. And so that gave them the space, these other people on the right, to say, oh, she's a DEI hire and all this kind of nonsense, forgetting her capabilities. And so what happened is that once that occurred, Joe Biden got Kamala Harris. We all rallied behind her, and we're really excited and happy. And then what happened is he thought that in 4 years the country would be better, but it wasn't. It just got worse. It got worse and worse and worse. Can you hear my dog? It
mhm.
got
It's
worse and
okay.
worse.
This is a live show.
Okay, I don't know where my husband is, but the racism got worse. It didn't get any better. It was sort of like after Obama happened, it just got worse, and the country became more divisive. And if we had any inkling that when he stepped aside and said, "I'm not going to run in 2024 for 2025," if we thought that we were going to elect a black woman, that was just pure fallacy. It went right out of the window.
Mhm,
And then what we also saw is when people started to think about Joe Biden, they said, "Oh no, let's get Tim Ryan, let's get Gavin Newsom, let's get this person, let's get this person," and they all overlooked Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris. And I saw that immediately, and I thought, "Oh, that's going to be a problem." Because if that doesn't happen, what is the black community going to do? If you
mhm,
think there's chaos now, you haven't seen any chaos. And
mhm.
so then, if you put Kamala Harris up, Vice President Harris up, what were you going to see? You're going to see the most racist Democrats and Republicans that you have ever seen in your life. And if I'm supposed to believe that after 50% of white women voted for Donald Trump in 2016, then after they saw all his crazy, more of them voted for him in 2020. If I'm to put my trust in them to give us a black vice president, female, then you must think I've lost my mind. So I don't think that he has is running because he wants to. I think that at the end of the day, he doesn't trust what this country would do any more than we do.
Mhm.
Amen.
Whew. Listen, that whole thing about 2016, and then remember, turn your mute on. That whole thing that happened in 2016, and then remember how all of those women showed out and came in protest with their little, they call them the pussy hats. They did all of that, and I'm like, how did we lose then? How did we lose? Well, we didn't lose the populist vote, but we lost in the electoral situation, which that's a whole nother discussion. I don't know why we didn't get rid of that after the Bush versus Gore thing in 2000. But anyway, it's just really insane to me how they will vote with their husbands. That's the thing. And it took my daughter to explain to me what happened. She says, "Mommy, they voted with their husbands, period. That's what they do." And then they get mad when or I do believe they were really upset because they thought that they were going to win. What, your husband don't have to know how you voted, right?
And I would just say one other thing in terms of of white of not white women, but is Vice President Harris being silent? She's not silenced now, and we are seeing and hearing because she will be the one who will bring out the black vote the way that we needed it in 2008 and 2012, and more in 2000 and 2020. So I think that she is loud now, and she is standing where she needs to stand, and I think she will help us deliver. But it is going to have to be all of us to raise our voices louder. People will have to do more in 2024 than just vote. It is just going to cast your vote is not enough.
Mhm.
If we want to get through this thing, and we haven't even talked about Project 2025,
Right.
which should have people running with their hair on fire. And
Yeah.
so, if we want to win this thing and live, at least how you are today, look for something better. We just voting isn't enough. Everybody has to figure out what their other thing is because we're going to have to do it.
Absolutely. So let me put a plug in for next week's show. Next week's show is my part two of the unraveling of civil rights in the United States. And it was a demand for that panel to come back. And so they're coming back. And the focus on that show, we had started getting into Project 2025 and we ran out of time. So we will be focusing on Project 2025, and that is next week. July 21st, same time, same back channel. And I hope all of you and more will come on, because I'll be putting the flyer out and information out soon. One of the all of them are powerhouses, including one of the panelists is a Gen Zer. But one of my panelists on that particular show is also the speechwriter and comms director for drum roll, Letitia James. So I know why Miss James talks with such authority, because if you know my friend Trevor, that's his work. So listen, guys, we're going to keep our promise, and we're going to switch our focus a little bit here now. We're going to switch things up to discuss the shooting at the Trump rally. And notice I'm not saying the word that they've been using on TV all day, because it's very dramatic and what have you. And even though it's true, I don't want to give any more into the narrative for sympathy or whatever. And I do not subscribe to any violence. I don't believe in guns, period. I know that one of my friends, if she hears this, she'll have a fit, because she has been trying to get me to go to a gun range. I deplore all of that stuff. So folks are literally saying now that it's the Democrats' rhetoric that spawned the shooting at Donald Trump's rally. And I distinctly remember a different type of narrative when he came on the scene back in 2016 or 2015, rather. So I'm going to do switch it up. Stacey, you first. What rhetoric has helped spawn domestic terrorism and violence, Stacey? What say you?
I wouldn't say it was the Democrats at all in doing that. And one of the things I would like to say is, I agree that violence is never the answer. Um, it just isn't. As far as rhetoric, I want to say this particular presumptive nominee has had the worst rhetoric in modern day history for a presidential candidate and a president in our country. And so I do feel that it's almost like the root of our foundation is rearing its ugly head, as far as the racism and bigotry and those things that pretty much founded our nation, that we had to move beyond and claw our way up. It's unfortunate that we have that. You would have thought, or one would have thought, that when situations like this arise, it's almost like a simmer down, cool down period with politicking, because you want the nation to heal, to come together as a nation to say this is not right. It's unfortunate that a mere 24 hours later, that divisiveness continues. that it's a no pun intended, a who shot John or who shot Paul situation, when it really should be one of a cool down, simmering down, no politicking at this moment, to heal. But unfortunately, as the other guest said, that's not what we live in at this moment with this particular presumptive nominee. What we have is a mountain of poo, and that's what it creates. Poo, stench, odor, all of that. And so when you hear that, that type of rhetoric, if you will, that it was one party that instigated this over another, I think it's shameful, but it's expected. And I think particularly as African Americans, we expect that other things like this. We expect when the poo hit the fan. So we know that those things were coming. I wouldn't be surprised at the upcoming convention that there are not T-shirts being sold with an image of the presumptive nominee on it with blood on the ear. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that going on, because that's just the world, and that's just the world we're in right now with this particular candidate or presumptive nominee, and so that's my 2 cents. But I definitely agree with your other guests that we are in very perilous times now more than ever. And I have a saying that if knowledge is power, if health is our wealth, and our vote is our voice, then the time is now that we lift every voice. Every voice has to be lifted. We have to get everybody from all walks of life that is eligible to vote, registered to vote, to actually cast a vote. Because this presumptive person, I believe, is incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely, absolutely. We were just starting to hear real some craziness with your Wi-Fi for a minute. I tell you, the devil is busy, Dr. Judy Foster, talking about this show tonight because it's too important for anybody to be missing and what have you. So, listen, I have another video for you all to see, to give you a reminder about what Trump said when the George Floyd protests were going on. So stay tuned for that, guys. Hold on.
Them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets
American
of our nation's
protesters.
capital. That's right. Shocking.
What specifically was he suggesting that the
Okay, so there you have it. He lost his job because he refused to have the military go into the streets of Washington, D.C. to shoot the protesters in the legs or in the foot or whatever, as if that doesn't cause damage. But you will recall they did do something. They put some tear gas or something, and they marched through, and then he went in front of a church and held the Bible upside down. Okay, so people, American, you know what? We have been so traumatized. I really think that so much has happened that it's hard to remember all of these things, but thank God that we have video. I mean, really. That we have video, and he said all the quiet parts out loud, just like with this Project 2025. All of that is out loud in 900 and some pages. Many people are going to dissect it and what have you. You don't even have to read the whole thing, just the dissected parts alone. And not even many of them are horrific. And they have a 180-day plan to implement it. So, you know, one of the things that's going to happen, guys, and I want my guests to chime in on this, that Trump will use not only this shooting for for the sympathy vote, but he's also going to use it to engage Black men and the rappers, of course, because he keeps doing this narrative. Oh, I can identify with you because I'm a felon now, just like you, so you should vote for me. That kind of foolishness. How do we combat that foolishness? Fennell, you first.
Yeah, I think, this the shooting was terrible, and I think we would all agree with that. But we must not let the Republicans take the narrative on that. We must stand strong, and so the whole thing, when they go low, we go high. No, when they go low, we need to go toe to toe now. We cannot afford to back down. And I think you can talk about a shooting and still be factual about who is creating all of this violence. I wanted to just remember Marjorie Taylor Greene running behind a high school student when he was trying to protest against gun violence. Just remember what they said about people when they were arrested. He said, "Don't be nice to them. Just push them in the car." Just remember what they said when Nancy Pelosi's husband was hit with a hammer and almost died. Remember what they said about that. And
Mm-hmm.
just remember when Governor Whitmer in Michigan
Oh
was, when
God.
they wanted to do that whole thing and kidnap her and kill her, they
Mm-hmm.
did not talk nice about her. They still talked badly about her and how horrible what a governor she was. So I'm just saying we must not. We can be factual and sympathetic all at the same time. And as in terms of the rappers and things like that, as people start to understand Project 2025, when
Mm-hmm.
rappers start to understand it, when entertainers start to understand that the white Christian nationalism component of that really takes away a lot of the freedom that they have. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think when they start to understand that it's really not about them, it is against them, that is the messages that we're going to have to tell. It's going to take every influencer everywhere to get the messages out about Project 2025 and its implications.
Mm-hmm. Stacy. Go ahead,
Can you hear me
Stacy.
now? Okay.
Oh,
Yes, I totally agree.
your something's happened with your internet. Maybe I don't know. Is it start talking now? Is it doing better? Let's see. Can you
Let's see,
talk?
better?
Oh God, yes.
Okay. All right. I took it off Bluetooth. I'm sitting in the car, so I'll just go straight through the phone.
Okay.
I agree with Fennell. I do feel that oftentimes Democrats we show up. You know how they say the game is not checkers, it's chess.
Yes.
Well, for me, I think in this election, I don't think we need to play games at all. I think we need to come in and glove up and box it out. Um, it comes a time when you have to put uh, kindness or gentleness aside. You know, when someone's boxing at you, you have to scrap back, and that's not just being facetious. It's a common fact. You know, if a bumblebee flies by us, what is our natural instinct? To swat it away, move to the side. Well, in this instance, when you're talking about liberties, when you're talking about injustices, when you're talking about livelihood, when you're talking about life or death situations that you yourself, your voice, your vote has a right to change, that's
Mm-hmm.
something to fight for. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's not something to go, you know, play patty cake in the schoolyard. We're not about to make mud pies. No, it's time to get in there and get into war. And when it's time, when you get into war, you glove up. Everybody does what they do best. If you a writer, write. If you are a grassroots person, get the marching. If you are a door knocker, knock the doors. Everybody needs to show up, show out, and get the gloves on because you know it's not just for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I say it's intergenerational, the
Mm-hmm.
benefits we have now, we didn't just get. This
No.
was back when I was born. You know, when back when Hillary and Obama was running, I probably was the only person in my household not necessarily thrilled because before it was yes we can and I'm with her, it was unbossed and unbought. A
Mm-hmm.
woman who an African American woman who decided to throw her hat in the ring in 1972, the year I was born. Now you talk about guts,
That was
courage,
nuts.
and That's something right there. So
Yeah. Chisholm.
for me, right now, I'm ready to glove up. So I've got my combat shoots on. The red bottoms can stay somewhere else because right now we need to march and
Mhm.
we need to take it there. So if they take it there, we need to go with them. And I absolutely agree with Fennell and the guests who said, hey, you know, when they go low, we need to get low with them. There's a way to do that, and I think we are all competent enough to do that. I don't think we need to feed into this as much as they should. It's unfortunate of what happened. I'm
Mhm.
glad it was nothing tragic, because that would not have looked good on our nation at this time. But as far as it coming down to our liberties and freedoms that we are at risk of losing, I'm talking about the past 60, 70 years of things of bloodshed that has loss of lives that has happened for us to be in this moment, to be at risk of losing it. No, I won't let that happen to my mother's legacy, who grew
Mhm.
up in that era. I won't let that happen to my grandmother's legacy, who did not have that right to do it. And so it has to be something where, as far as engaging voters, one of the things we need to do in our African American community is stop glamorizing this type of thing in the first place.
Mhm.
Um, we shouldn't be glamorizing that in the first place.
I'm gonna do a whole show. I've done one before. It was a culture talk. It was about guns and violence and what have you. But I'm gonna do one. It's soon, not right away. About this whole the how the music industry and the prison school to prison pipeline and the for-profit prisons, how all of those are interrelated. And there were basic business decisions. And it's got us from doing the R&B love songs to talking about body parts. But I digress. But Fennell, anything you'd like to say to round us up here?
Yeah, yeah, I would. I, I I think that this is a scary, scary time, and and people who aren't afraid at this moment probably aren't paying attention. But what you try to do is replace fear with defiance. And defiance is getting up every single morning and figuring out what is the thing that you have to do. This is really, really serious. And I know people say it all the time. This is the most important This is the most important election ever, because people, there's just so much hatred and they hate us. And what would happen to other people, it will certainly be bad, but for us, it will be horrible. It will be life like we've not seen before. And so I think that, to Stacy's point, it is time to glove up. It is time to figure out what it is you're going to do. It might be
Mhm.
postcards, it might, whatever it is,
Whatever.
how big or small. We just all got to figure it out and go to work.
All right. You got to figure it out and go to work. Listen, guys, I am so thankful for you all coming. Everyone, if you're on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up, in particular on YouTube, and hit the subscribe button. If you're on uh, uh, LinkedIn or Facebook, hit the thumbs up, all of that good stuff too. And if you get around to it, go make a visit on my channel on YouTube and subscribe. I'd appreciate it very much. Special thanks to Fennell Norton of Virginia and Stacy Jackson of Michigan for being my very special guest this evening. And it was a great conversation. And we made it, guys, through all of our technical difficulties. All right. Let's wave off good night. Good night, everyone.